John,
Angie,
are you a surface guy or do you like to go deep?
profundity is my middle name, Angie.
That's a strange middle name. Were your parents hippies?
It's just an expression. Angie, I love deep thinking and deep conversation.
Well, you'll need your scuba gear for this episode because we're going deep on coaching philosophy.
Angie, that's music to my ears, which I'm now going to plug so I don't get water in them. Let's start the show. Welcome to the Coaching Clinic with John and Angie, the show for professional coaches that explores the ins and outs of coaching, from working with clients through to running and marketing your coaching business.
If you're a professional coach who's committed to your own personal and professional growth, cares about making a difference, and wants to have a successful coaching business, you're in the right place.
My name's John Ball.
And I'm Angela Bezignano.
Between us, we have over 50 years of coaching experience and best practices to share with you. From getting started to scaling up your business.
We know what works and what doesn't, as well as what it really takes to have a successful and thriving coaching business.
With new episodes every Wednesday.
Make sure you're subscribed to get them fresh. This is a really interesting topic, and I'm going to work really hard today at brevity because I could probably go on for hours.
It's the first time for everything, Angie.
Right. I mean, it's just coming at him. I could see the look. You could see the look on this man's face. I just knew there was some type of sarcasm, cheekiness coming through. It was about to come through. But seriously, I really think that there's different philosophies around how we coach, who we are as coaches, and where we intend to go within those sessions.
You know, for me, when I first got into personal development, I did spend a lot of time wondering what's behind all of this. Like, where does all this cool stuff come from? The ideas, the philosophies. I really didn't know because I would say this. I'm talking like maybe late 90s, early 2000s. A lot of the personal development training companies that were around in the UK at that time, I can't really speak to the US so much, weren't so big on sharing where they got their information from. I think because they didn't really want people going to the source rather than to them, which is maybe fair enough to some degree. But I still wondered, where does all this come from? Where are the ideas, the principles? Where is it all based on? And I got very, very interested in philosophy. I've always liked that, but I got really interested in philosophy as to where this all was coming from. And that's been quite a journey for me that's been eye-opening in some ways, because I think personal development philosophies come from so many different places and can really affect how we coach or how we view our coaching, some of our values around how we work with people as well, and also the processes that we may even end up using with people to help get them to where they want to get to.
Sure.
What has been your insights or experience with regards to maybe coaching philosophy?
You know what's so funny is having this reflection over the years, I don't really know if I had a philosophy in the beginning, right? In the beginnings of my coaching days, practice, all the things. And I then, once I started to see big names put out information, I feel like I developed a little bit of my own. And where I sit today, this is an ambiguous answer, sorry, but where I sit today, the philosophies that I believe in as a coach are actually a framework that I was taught and got certified in. And it's why we've talked about certifications before. Most of the ones that I have are relatively useless, but this other framework that I use is very human-based, right? So for me as a coach, any philosophy that I buy into, meaning that I understand it, I acknowledge it, I believe in it, and utilize it, it has to be human element developed without a lot of psychology in it. I know it's based on psychology, right? But I'm careful about it because I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist. So I think that's part of it. Again, a little bit of an ambiguous answer, but for me, anything that is good coaching from that philosophy space, it just has to come from that human element. We're human first before we are any role that we play.
And
what about you?
To me, philosophy is somewhat about asking and answering the big questions, and in a way that religion has never been able to do that for me, even though a lot of religion does ask the big questions like meaning of life and stuff like that. I was never satisfied with the answers that I got in those areas. And
Right.
so I looked to other places. Certainly there are aspects of various philosophies and religion that I still like and would adopt. I take the bits I like and maybe disregard the bits that I'm
Sure.
not so keen on. And I think
No.
that's probably what most of us do in our lives anyway, or what we tend to do. I think it was when I started to discover philosophies like more the sort of Buddhist philosophy rather than the Buddhist religion, Taoist philosophies, and
Oh,
other ancient philosophies particularly from like ancient Rome, ancient Greece as well, that I really started reading a lot more about it, got very interested in even like ancient Chinese philosophy. There's so much amazing deep thought out there, people who've pondered these deep life questions and have tried to either answer them or at least guide the way we think about them. And I find that particularly valuable just in terms of it can give you a great mindset for how you approach the world, how you think about things. Give you one example of this. In Buddhism, is really all about you want to release your suffering, but you also want to step out of drama. Like one of their philosophies is like getting rid of the drama in your life. I really like that. I think I was, in my younger days, pretty addicted to drama and would often find myself creating problematic situations in my life because of that addiction to drama. When you recognize that, you can also start to see that in other people. If they're doing that as well, you can say, hey, look, I mean, to some degree, maybe you want this and you're creating this, because if you don't have that attraction or pull to drama, there's less to get super emotional or reactive about, because people tend to model reactions and responses to how they think they should react and respond, often to instead of what's really at the heart of things, or they don't take that step back to be able to think about things. But yeah, I want to give you a chance to come in there, because otherwise I'm going to
no, no,
keep
no. And
over.
I'm listening because, obviously my answer compared to yours was very ambiguous. But if I look at it from practices, I think what you said is very important, that as coaches, we need to be flexible the same way we expect or hope that our clients are flexible, right? And in that, I don't just stick to this is it, this is the framework, and this is what I believe in. If I pick up things along the way, whether it's I'm reading a book about some type of religion, or I just recently read Arnold Schwarzenegger's Be Useful.
Yeah,
Whether
I
you
read that
like
too.
them or
Yeah.
not, there were some things that were mentioned in that book that I thought, ooh, this is really
Yeah, he has a
important. And
philosophy, right? He does. Yeah.
yeah. So it's not always what we perceive as some philosophical baseline. It's where we gather information that we believe can be helpful for the people with whom we're interacting. So yeah, I guess for me, and in terms of trying to stay away from certain things, like I'm careful, right? Unless I know a client has like a very deep spiritual belief, I need to understand a little bit about that. Even if I am coaching them and I bring up something just as matter of fact, that I'm honoring them at the same time. That's just my little side note. But cherry picking, I think, is our way, or should be our way as coaches, of remaining fluid, remaining open to the natural and organic flow of the work we do in our sessions with our clients.
Yeah.
Is there something that you hold specifically that you intentionally, and maybe you don't, but that you incorporate into your sessions as a framework or a baseline?
No, this is a complicated question to answer, simply because I am very intentional about not being completely dogmatic about any one philosophy or approach. That
Mhm.
I don't
Yeah.
necessarily think any one philosopher or questioner has all the right things, or has nothing. There's nowhere else I need to
Yeah.
look. That I have all the answers or thoughts that I really need to have, because there's so much more out there. So no,
Yeah.
and it's a consistent evolution as well. I say consistent. There's always going to be things that will encourage a new path of growth or thought or development for me. And of course, this could end. If I allow myself, this could end up being a very long episode. But I won't. I will focus towards brevity myself. But I would say one of the things that first got me down this particular path was listening to the late Wayne Dyer. I don't know if you ever used to
Love
listen to.
Wayne.
Yeah, right. He used to. So many of his talks were about wisdom of the ages, like whether you shared the same sort of spiritual approach or not. So much ancient or long-standing wisdom that was so applicable for today. He and a few other speakers who I used to listen to a lot really helped me in figuring out what was right for me and what I liked and what I could take from that and apply. That still helps me probably now in my coaching as well to be able to
Yeah.
help the people who I work with and apply some of the learnings that I got from them. None of it is stuff I came up with myself, but I certainly probably have a unique mix of a lot of different philosophies because I've also gotten very into Stoicism, but again, not dogmatic about it. I'm not a practicing Stoic, but there's a lot of Stoic
Yeah.
philosophy that I really like. I really loved Man's Search for Meaning, an incredible book. And I would definitely say that had a huge effect on me and my philosophy, on my approach on life. And Viktor Frankl's sort of logotherapy stuff. There's so many
Yeah.
interesting ideas. But there's stuff I've picked up from so many different places. And I don't feel it scattered. I just feel like you pick the bits that feel good and relevant and right and apply them. If it has benefit to your life and if you can see the usefulness of it, apply it and adopt it. And you can also help other people with it. Because the whole of, I didn't know this until a few years ago, but the whole of CBT therapy, cognitive-based therapy, came from Stoicism and a Stoic philosophy approach to life. And got to speak to one of the founders of that, Donald Robertson, who was very enlightening to speak to, but he was very involved in the creation of that therapy, which has proven to be incredibly effective for many people and who struggle with trauma, particularly trauma and massive phobias and things like that, to be able to help them overcome those incredible benefits that can come from these different areas of philosophy. This is me being brief, by the way. You can
Yeah, no,
believe it.
listen, and you guys, I'm going to say this because I know John personally as well. I don't think I've ever seen him say so much without taking a breath since I've known him.
I like philosophy.
But I'm poking fun, but having a passion or a belief in something I think is important for us to talk about. I think that I have intentionally veered away from, now that I'm thinking about it, right? I've veered away from specific practices. And it's so funny because the word clarity keeps coming up over and over in my head, even as you're talking. And I think the only intentionality that I bring, the thing that I do over and over and over, right, that I don't ever cherry pick with or through is clarity. Because the idea for us is to help our clients gain clarity so that, fill in the blank, they make movement forward. Let's just broad stroke it right there. And the challenge with it, but the beauty of it at the same time, is that clarity is not finite. It doesn't just happen and boom, you're there. So for me, my buy-in, very superficial, is that with every piece of clarity that we have or even our clients have, because we're learning through the process of coaching them as well, is that once you get clear, there's something that follows it that makes things unclear again. There's some piece, like you could say, what do you want to do when you grow up? I don't know. Oh, I decided to be a doctor. Probably have said this before. And you go, okay, but now that's great. There's a step. But now what kind of a doctor? What kind of a practice? Oh, I don't know. Again, you gain clarity, but it's like the kite and the tail. The kite is that clarity piece, but the tail is like never ending, following. So
Yeah.
I feel like anything that can, and the word inhibit comes to my head, but that's not really the word I'm looking for, but that doesn't inhibit that clarity is really where I spend my focus. That's where I decide, or how I decide where I should cherry pick.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Because you have that confused look on your face and I'm not understanding it.
No, I understand what you said. Just have a question for you. Did you ever watch The Good Place?
No,
Have you seen that?
no.
Such a good comedy. It's on Netflix. I highly recommend it for you and for our listeners, if you haven't already checked it out. When I first saw it, I was a bit put off because I thought it was about someone who dies and goes to heaven and things go a bit right. That's not really what it's about. It's actually an exploration of philosophy and ethics more than
Very.
anything else, in a really hilarious way as well. One of the funniest things I've seen in years, and I highly, highly recommend it. But this whole thing of like ethics and philosophy, well, philosophies guide our ethics. So how we want to know how to be good people. We want to think of ourselves generally, most of us at least, want
Yeah.
to think of ourselves as good people. We want to live good lives. We want to be virtuous to some degree, although I think that word has been somewhat spoiled by various political groups over the last several years. But virtuous in its truest form is about living a good life, being good to people in your life and to yourself. And how do we do that? How do we avoid the traps of excess? How do we avoid the cruelty to other people? How do we know what actually is living a good life? This is where it all guides us to. And that's why I say this philosophy aspect is so important for coaches. If you haven't ever pulled back the curtain in personal development and looked what's behind the stuff that the frameworks that you've learned as a coach to help other people with, what's behind the teachings, where have they come from? Yes, sure, some of them have come from religion, some of them come from psychology, some of them have come from pretty ancient philosophies as well. It is worth taking a look at those and starting to focus on what your philosophy is. What are the bits of all these areas that you can look at that feel right and connect with you and help you understand what it is about living a good life and how you can then help others to do that as well. I think that's a big part of coaching, to be able to help people make, let's say, the right decisions, not as in right or wrong, but the right decisions for them, and to help them to find their path and empower them to be able to move forward in positive ways, rather than maybe imposing anything that says, no, you have to do this. These are the laws. These are the things you have to follow.
Oh
We don't
gosh.
need to do any of that.
Now you're really jumping into my space because I know you've heard of like heat-seeking missiles. I'm
Yeah.
like the truth-seeking coach.
Yes.
I know,
I
I
know
really
this
do.
about you. Yeah, I know this
I
about you.
know because I feel like if I can, whether you like it or the people around you like it or not, if you were to admit a truth, what would that truth be, right? In each area of your life. And the question then becomes like, are you living into that? So my premise, everything that I do is about helping people find their truth, because if I don't help people find their truth or help them find the courage to admit to their truths, then I can't coach them. It's hard to coach them because I don't want to coach them into something that is a band-aid or something that isn't really meaningful or powerful for them or purpose-driven. So yeah, we could go on and on about this because I'm feeling it now. We just all of a sudden I'm like, oh, the truth space. When where's the philosophy and truth? Everywhere,
Yeah,
everywhere, right?
yeah,
If you really think about it. So
I, yeah, I mentioned Viktor Frankl earlier. That was one of the most enlightening books for me, and just recognizing that I think I used to have a belief that purpose was one of those things that was out there and you had to find it, or it would be revealed to you in by some
yeah,
divine providence.
sure.
That I now believe that it's something that you choose for yourself. That
Mhm.
is something that you have to decide what that is for you based on who you are and what your values are, and decide what you want the purpose of your life to be. Of course, you don't have to make that decision. You can decide to continue your life without purpose and maybe perfectly happy with that. But for those of us who are searching for purpose and deeper meaning, we don't have to look outside of ourselves for that, which I think is incredibly empowering. It's all these kinds of things that I think bring that into the coaching could be very empowering and developmental for the people that you work with. And I love all these aspects. I think this is one of those topics that could easily be a separate podcast of philosophy behind all
Lord,
this stuff,
yeah. Yeah, no,
which we're not going to
absolutely.
do, which we're not going
We're
to do.
not going to do it today, but we'll probably break things down along the way because I believe that it's important for us to be able to do that so that we can take our clients on that journey and challenge them beyond the surface, challenge them beyond what looks to be obvious. But when somebody gives me an answer, just as an example, if they give me a quick answer like, oh, what's the most important thing to you? Oh, it's my family. I don't believe that. The first answer they give me, I'm like, that could be part of the truth, but it's usually not their truth. So, oh my gosh, let me add it. Come on.
We
What?
said we said we were talking about going deep on today, and I think we have gone as probably as deep as we can with the
Yeah.
time available to us. But there's levels of deepness we could go to, but we don't know. It might be interesting for us, but it might be less interesting for you to listen to. But I would say, if you want a really nice, fun, and easy introduction to philosophy, moral philosophy, ethics, all that kind of stuff, The Good Place is such a fun watch. But there's also a really cool book by Michael Schur, who wrote that. I forget the title, but it is kind of about all these topics as well, discussing philosophy in a more general context that's quite digestible and not boring, actually fun. And this stuff does not need to be boring or dry at all. In fact, it can be super, super fascinating. And you don't have to be a complete nerd about it like I am.
I am a self-proclaimed nerd. And listen, but I'm glad you said
I
that
really
though,
am.
John, because I definitely think that there are listeners that the minute they hear philosophy, they go, oh, right? Because they assume it's this like deep. We're not going that deep today. We went deep. We hit it hard enough, but
We
we
went
don't
as
have to
deep as we needed to go. But yeah, we certainly, whilst the deeper dives are available, we have to look at what the purpose is of the conversation. I think we've probably covered what we essentially need to, and hopefully has at least encouraged you to pull back the curtain on what's behind the philosophies and ideas of coaching and personal development, and take a look at that. Well worthwhile. There's other aspects of psychology and stuff, and maybe we'll take a look at in another episode, but this has been fun. I'd love to hear your thoughts or your questions or your comments. We both would. You can leave us a voicemail, speakpipe.com/The Coaching Clinic Podcast. You can leave us a quick voicemail there with your questions, comments, concerns, anything like that. If we like it, we might just feature you on the show, and we will look forward to welcoming you or speaking to you again in another episode very soon.
Love it. See you guys soon.